MrBeast enters a luxurious restaurant in the heart of the city, dressed in simple clothes that look like he's just come from an ordinary day of giving away money. He chooses a discreet table, trying to blend in while the glow of crystal chandeliers illuminates the space around him. But before he even gets the chance to place his order, a waitress approaches with a look of disdain and an arrogant posture. "Are you sure you can afford to be here?" she snaps, her tone laced with irony, loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. What happens next not only leaves everyone in the restaurant stunned, but also reveals a truth that changes everything. It was a cool evening in Beverly Hills, the kind where the neon lights gleam from every corner and the streets pulse with the hum of luxury cars. Lumiere, one of the most renowned fine dining restaurants in the area, sat at the heart of the city, its glass doors gleaming in the streetlight. The restaurant had earned its reputation as the place to be seen, to enjoy an extravagant meal while rubbing elbows with the city's elite. As the door swung open, MrBeast, aka Jimmy Donaldson, YouTube's most philanthropic star, walked into the restaurant. He was dressed in simple, casual clothes, worn-out jeans, a plain t-shirt, and sneakers. He looked like just another man coming in to grab a quick bite. But what he didn't know was that tonight, he was going to test the judgment and biases of the people around him. Despite his massive wealth and fame, MrBeast wasn't one for flaunting it. In fact, he often preferred to keep a low profile, more focused on his latest charitable project than living the Hollywood lifestyle. However, as he stepped into the elegant dining room of Lumiere, he seemed completely out of place. The low hum of conversation and the soft melodies of a pianist playing in the corner didn't seem to faze him, but his presence was certainly noticeable. Ashley, one of Lumiere's most experienced waitresses, had been working there for years. She moved through the dining room with a sense of practiced efficiency, a rehearsed smile permanently etched on her face. Her uniform was immaculate, her hair pulled back into a tight bun that matched her controlled demeanor. To Ashley, working at Lumiere wasn't just a job, it was a privilege, something she proudly flaunted to anyone who would listen. But Ashley's pride often veered into arrogance. She had a particular talent for sizing up patrons before even speaking to them, categorizing them in her mind based on their clothes, demeanor, and even the cars they drove. She had no time for people who didn't belong at Lumiere, and she thought she could tell at a glance who was worth serving. Tonight, as Ashley stood at the reception desk, discussing a VIP reservation with another staff member, her gaze fell upon MrBeast. He didn't look anything like the typical clientele Lumiere catered to. His clothes were simple and plain, the opposite of the luxury attire worn by most of the restaurant's guests. Ashley's eyes narrowed as she took in his scuffed sneakers, the plainness of his attire, and the unassuming way he carried himself. Who does he think he is? Ashley thought to herself. He doesn't belong here. Without bothering to hide her disdain, Ashley straightened up, crossed her arms, and watched MrBeast approach the desk. His unassuming demeanor contrasted sharply with the flashy surroundings of Beverly Hills. When he reached her, he smiled politely, his tone calm. "Good evening. I'd like a table, please," he said. Ashley raised an eyebrow, as if he'd just made a ridiculous request. She didn't hide her skepticism as she gave him a slow, dismissive once-over. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "This is a very exclusive restaurant." MrBeast smiled slightly, completely unfazed. "Yes, I'm sure." Ashley's expression grew colder. She leaned forward and began typing MrBeast's name into the reservation system with exaggerated flair, hoping to catch him out. But when no reservation came up, she rolled her eyes and returned to the dining room, visibly annoyed. "Well, as I suspected," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "you don't have a reservation. But, just so you know, this isn't a casual dining spot." MrBeast's demeanor remained unruffled. "I'd still like to dine here," he replied, his calm tone only irritating her further. Ashley sighed loudly, grabbed a menu, and waved it dismissively toward him. "All right, but I'll need to seat you in a suitable area. Follow me." Ashley walked briskly through the dining room, making no effort to check if MrBeast was following her. She didn't care. She was determined to make him feel out of place, to show him just how uncomfortable he could be in a place like this. Instead of taking him to one of the better-lit tables in the center of the room, where patrons could see and be seen, she led him to the farthest, least appealing corner near the kitchen. The sounds of dishes clattering and the chatter of the staff provided a sharp contrast to the serene elegance of the rest of the restaurant. When they arrived, Ashley threw the menu on the table with an audible thud. "Here you go. This table is perfect for you," she said in a falsely sweet tone. "If you need anything, let me know, but only if it's necessary. Okay?" MrBeast simply smiled slightly, his calm demeanor not shaken in the slightest. "Thank you. I'm sure this will be an interesting experience." As Ashley turned away, she muttered under her breath, loud enough for the nearby couple to hear. "He won't last 5 minutes here. Bet he'll leave as soon as he opens the menu." Across the dining room, MrBeast opened the menu slowly, scanning the options with unhurried focus. His posture was relaxed, almost meditative, and his presence seemed to bring a calm to the table, contrasting sharply with the chaotic energy of the staff. Ashley, from across the room, watched with a smug smile, certain that he would soon ask for the check and disappear. But as time went on, nothing happened. MrBeast didn't get up, didn't fidget, didn't look around uncomfortably. He remained seated, appearing completely unbothered by the attention, or lack thereof, that he was receiving. Ashley's attempts to provoke him escalated. She dropped the appetizer in front of him forcefully, causing it to slide slightly across the table. "Here's your appetizer," she said with a mocking smile. "Hope you know what you're eating." MrBeast, unfazed, thanked her politely. "Thank you. It looks excellent." Ashley leaned in slightly, as if trying to provoke a reaction. "You know, a lot of people who order this dish don't really like it. It's not exactly mainstream." MrBeast smiled again, not letting her words get to him. "It looks wonderful. Thank you for your attention." Frustrated by his lack of reaction, Ashley walked away, muttering to a coworker. "He won't even make it to the main course. He's going to ask for the check as soon as he sees the bill." As the night continued, Ashley grew more and more irritated with MrBeast's unshakable calm. She decided to escalate her efforts. She made a point of walking past his table repeatedly, pretending to be busy, but every time MrBeast glanced in her direction, she avoided his gaze and quickened her steps. She was determined to make him uncomfortable, but it wasn't working. The more she tried, the more MrBeast seemed to remain completely unperturbed, and it was beginning to draw the attention of the other patrons. At one point, an elderly man seated nearby, who had been observing the situation, approached MrBeast with a kind smile. "Good evening, young man," the elderly man said. "I hope you don't mind me interrupting, but I've noticed that you've been overlooked." MrBeast smiled back politely. "Good evening. Don't worry, it's all fine." The elderly man chuckled softly. "You know, sometimes being treated like this is a test of our patience, but I can tell, you're handling it well." Before MrBeast could reply, Ashley reappeared, cutting off the conversation. "Sir, can I help you with something?" she asked the elderly man, her voice more polished than usual, but still carrying an authoritative tone. "I wouldn't want you to disturb our customer." The elderly man narrowed his eyes but kept his composure. "Don't worry, miss. I was just speaking to this gentleman. It's rare to meet someone so serene." Ashley let out a loud, exaggerated sigh. "Well, perhaps you should return to your table and enjoy your dinner," she said, clearly impatient. MrBeast observed the interaction silently, his expression calm yet analytical. "Thank you for coming over," he said to the elderly man. "It was a pleasure speaking with you." Later, when MrBeast's main course finally arrived, Ashley made sure to take longer than necessary. First, she stopped in the kitchen to chat with the chefs, leaving the dish sitting under the warming lamp. When she finally returned, she dropped the dish in front of MrBeast with a brusque gesture. "Here's your order. I hope you enjoy it," she said sarcastically. "And if you don't like it, let us know. We can always adjust to something more affordable." MrBeast thanked her calmly. "It looks excellent. Thank you." Ashley, irritated that he still hadn't given in, leaned in slightly, lowering her voice just enough for him to hear. "Are you sure it's sophisticated enough for someone like you?" MrBeast, maintaining his composed demeanor, responded gently. "I'm sure. Thank you for your concern." Frustrated, Ashley walked away quickly, murmuring loudly enough for other patrons to hear. "He's pretending to be polite, but it's obvious he's uncomfortable. He doesn't even know what he's eating." As Ashley continued her provocations, MrBeast remained calm. Finally, as Ashley walked past his table again, she spoke loudly enough for the nearby tables to hear. "You know, it's hard to maintain standards when just anyone thinks they can walk in," she said, casting a pointed glance in MrBeast's direction. The other patrons began paying attention, murmuring among themselves, some frowning at Ashley's blatant cruelty. The elderly man, who had earlier spoken to MrBeast, raised his glass to him in silent solidarity. A couple at a nearby table exchanged looks of disapproval. MrBeast stood up from his seat, his calm demeanor undisturbed. This was the moment. The restaurant manager, a middle-aged man with impeccable posture and a commanding presence, entered the scene. He spotted MrBeast immediately, and his expression shifted from concern to respect. Hurrying over, he addressed MrBeast with a tone of reverence. "MrBeast, I wasn't aware you were visiting us today," the manager exclaimed. "Please, let me know how I can assist you." Ashley's face turned pale, the color draining from her cheeks. She glanced at the manager, then at MrBeast, utterly bewildered. MrBeast met the manager's gaze calmly. "Let's talk about how we treat people," he said, his voice carrying weight. The room fell silent as the manager turned his attention toward Ashley. "Ashley," he said sternly, "I expect a full explanation for your behavior after your shift. For now, please leave this table. I'll take over." Ashley opened her mouth to protest, but the manager's glare silenced her. With a quick motion, she turned and hurried away, avoiding the stares of the other patrons. MrBeast, still calm, addressed the room. This restaurant was founded with the idea of being a place where everyone could feel welcome, no matter who they are or what they look like. Unfortunately, tonight, that wasn't the case.